And hello, everybody. Welcome to the final part of my three-part rant about censorship. And this final part is going to be about television censorship. Probably the most infamous of them all. Now, censorship on the TV. Censorship that definitely does not just apply to language. Censorship on TV also applies to nudity, stuff like that. Or maybe just elements of a certain show they don't want to be signified. Or, the companies don't want to be signified. But I'm pretty sure that I've already made my point at least semi clear with, my, ranting and raving about how language shouldn't be so heavily censored out. So I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to talk about language censorship on TV. I'm really just going to stick with other elements. Mainly the whole thing about nudity, and this is really weird because I have actually seen and heard that in other countries, Japan, most famously, when they show animes and stuff over there, if there's nudity in that anime, they'll show it. And guess what? It's not rated X or MA or anything like that. Kids kids, like it's available on public TV at normal hours, normal daytime hours, so anyone can see it, even young kids. However, in America, you don't see that. Now, why? I think because that it's probably a true stereotypical view that kids in America would take something like nudity so extreme, I guess. Like they would, kids would get like such an instant idea of like sexuality and all that kind of stuff, and kids in other countries probably wouldn't think in such a perverted way, like right off the bat. Maybe the majority of them wouldn't. But I think people here in the states are really just afraid that if they show nudity, that during daytime hours on what should be kids shows or whatever, even teenage shows, I mean, hell, even on MA-rated shows are not even on there. It's just movies nowadays. I think that they think that kids would start to get the wrong idea. Maybe they think that if kids are exposed to that much nudity at such a young age, that they would get the wrong ideas about women, how women only exist to yes, that's my cat in the background. He's right behind me. How kids would probably get such a wrong idea about women, like all those men you see on the Maury show. They're always like, women only exist to serve me. They only exist to please men. That they are not people. They are objects. That kind of stuff. And I think I actually would agree on that to a point. If kids are exposed to that much nudity, maybe they think that, or maybe they would think that exposing themselves in public, whether on TV or not, will be okay. Um, Really, as far as nudity goes, I don't think there's really any other point. Like maybe they would just take it too seriously, and by that I mean they would maybe they think it would lead to them becoming sexually active at a young age, which is of course a huge problem probably everywhere in the world, but especially here. Of all these news reports of 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds getting impregnated by their 20-year-old, their 20-year-old pimp, and all that shit. I mean, I've seen so many reports of that. I'm just like, doesn't even surprise me anymore. I used to see it so like frequently. It just doesn't surprise me anymore. If I see a news report that says 14-year-old girl impregnated by her 21-year-old boyfriend, it's ugh. But other elements that are censored is things like violence, like guns, blood, gore. I think it's something else. I think that people are really afraid. Now, I'm not sure how in other countries violence is censored or not, but in general, I think violence is really censored because if kids, like young kids, saw it, they would be traumatized or whatever, or they would be, just probably it would probably give them nightmares. Just seeing all those like exposed organs and blood falling everywhere. That would probably affect them quite a bit. Not everyone. Like for example, take me. I started seeing that kind of violence, and I was playing my first M-rated video games with guns and blood and gore and shit when I was 6 years old. I mean, my first M-rated game was Duke Nukem for the N64. I think I've said that plenty of times, and I'll say it here and again. Violence in video games has never affected me so much that it's maybe another thing that people fear if kids see that kind of violence is they think it'd be okay to commit violent acts like that. Like they think that kids think, oh well, it's okay to just get a gun and or use a gun and shoot things, shoot people, kill people, and all that kind of stuff. But I knew better than that, you know? I mean, I played a huge share of violent video games when I was younger, but have I ever once been tempted to, steal a gun or borrow a gun and go blow someone's gray matter all over the pavement? No. Video games are not reality. No matter how real they try to make them look nowadays, I will admit there have been some video games that have recently come out that I'm like, holy crap, that actually looks almost 100% real. I mean, no matter how real they try to make them look, I know it's not real life. It's fantasy, you know. But unfortunately, there is a large amount of people, both kids and adults alike, who think differently. They think the wrong way. They think video games are really like close to reality, and they try to do acts in real life that could relate to video games, in terms of violence or even sex. But back to the case of TV, violence and nudity, I think, are the biggest, aside from language, violence and nudity are really the two only other major censorship targets, I guess you could say, or topics. And I think I would understand, I think I understand nudity and, violent censorship a hell of a lot more than language, especially when it comes to things like music. But really, I will agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't want my I wouldn't want my kids exposed to things like that if they were really young. I would pick a certain age, or if I thought that they knew better when it comes to like violence, nudity, that's a different kind of thing. But in terms of violence, if I think something is too violent, but I think they're if they say they're able to handle it, I'm like this is not real, right? I mean that's what my parents did with me. I mean I was playing violent video games, watching violent TV shows, and all that kind of stuff when I was like 6 or 7, and I didn't turn out to be a crime committing type. I've never been arrested once. And granted, I have been pulled over by the police for like twice for not stopping long enough at a stop sign or something like that. But I've never been arrested for shoplifting. I've never murdered anybody. I've never exposed myself in public. Oh boy. Things of that nature. And really, in terms of censorship in those fields, I can sympathize a lot more. Because really, I don't think kids should be exposed to at least nudity of that kind until they're at least teenage age. When they can start really getting the idea that, they can take nudity and take it maturely. That's the main problem, immaturity. You don't want anyone to take anything with an immature attitude because that can just lead to nothing but disaster. But I think if kids can take things like nudity and violence and language maturely and know that it's not right to just randomly commit acts of violence or commit acts of violence at all, or anything nudity related, or just scream out swear words in public, then if they know how to take a mature attitude towards all those three factors, then it really just seems okay. I mean, or else I never would have been exposed to M-rated video games when I was 7 years old. I will keep using that as an example in terms of violence. But really, that's all I have to say about censorship. I mean, music, and video game censorship. I don't really agree with how overboard it's gone, but especially in music. But on TV, when it comes to like violence and nudity, and things like drug abuse, obviously, that's something you don't want kids getting exposed to at all. You do not want kids going out, singing on TV like, "Oh my God, he's drinking beer. Oh my God, he's smoking pot. He's so cool." You obviously don't want that. But I mean, that's something you just don't want at all. But if it's something they can take with a mature attitude and they know not to do it, just like with violence and nudity, then they can be allowed to see it. Just like me. I don't abuse drugs or alcohol. I've had a few alcoholic drinks, but I don't just go out and randomly get blasted and try to drive home when I'm stoned, fall down drunk. So that's really all I have to say about this rant. Apologize for being in 3 parts, but I had quite a lot to say about it. And that does it for this video, and I will more than likely make my tag or 1,000 subscriber special next. But until that time comes, I will see you guys next time.